From the Second Street Dreams audio network, this is Staccato, quick notes dotting the classical music landscape. I'm Judlyn Gibson. The gold standard. This is the first orchestral recording of William Grant Still's African Dancer from his 1943 Suite for Violin and Orchestra. It's not the only one. 12 other tracks on the album, simply titled William Grant Still, are world premiere recordings of his work. His granddaughter, Celeste Headlee, says Still, known as the Dean of African American Composers, struggled until the end of his life in 1978 to get his works recorded.
Having all of these pieces on here that have never been recorded before. For my grandfather, recordings were the gold standard. That's how you got other orchestras to and ensembles to play your music. That's how you became known, was through the recordings.
The album is truly a family production. Conductor Avlana Eisenberg of the Boston Chamber Symphony helped curate and produce it because of her mother, Zena Schiff. She is the violinist on this album.
She loved these works and continued doing some research and figuring out what other works William Grant Still had written for violin. She started playing Pastorella and learned the violin suite and was playing these works in recital. And when it came to her attention that these works were all also orchestrated, that was the beginning of this project. Now, there weren't enough pieces for violin and orchestra to fill out the entire album. And so that's when I got involved. It became clear that we could bring in some of his never before recorded orchestral works and do an entire album of his orchestral music. Half of them, half of the disc is with solo violin.
The music was performed by the Royal Scottish National Orchestra on the Naxos label.
I can report it was a fabulous collaboration. They were so open-minded. Virtually none of them had heard of William Grant Still. They loved the music, and it felt so special to be able to go on this journey with them and get such a positive response.
This is Gammon from Still's Suite for Violin and Orchestra.
His incorporation of jazz and blues idioms and the way he uses orchestral color in such innovative ways and dialogue between, the violin soloist and the bassoon to create this hilarious moment in the third movement of the violin suite. It's so vastly rich and so varied. And I think he touches at the core of human emotion. And I think, therefore, that's something that is truly universal.
A style which he brought to his orchestrations and compositions in Hollywood.
He was one of the main arrangers for Paul Whiteman, who had dubbed himself the King of Jazz. And so he began working in Hollywood, and he did quite well. He wrote music for Gunsmoke and the Three Stooges and Perry Mason. He was working on the score for Lost Horizon. But the reason he quit was because of the racism in the studios. He was probably one of the greatest orchestrators America's ever seen. That people should be learning from what he learned and building on his knowledge and his accomplishments.
Summerland, composed in 1936. It's not what we call our season of heat. The way William Grant Still wrote and arranged this piece makes summer sound like a sweet breeze wafting through the shade trees. Even though it's really about the promised beauty in the afterlife. something Avlana and Celeste have accomplished for him here on Earth.
It was such an honor to have had the opportunity to record these works for the first time. That said, I genuinely hope this is not the last recording, right? I hope that, there were decisions I had to make while poring over the manuscript about which harmony was intended if a note seemed like it could be one or the other. Someday, someone will suggest that actually I was wrong, and that's great, because that means that his work is getting the attention that it deserves. So I genuinely think this needs to be part of the canon, and that he absolutely stands among the great American composers.
Conductor Avlana Eisenberg and granddaughter Celeste Headlee talking about the album William Grant Still, performed by the Royal Scottish National Orchestra. There are links on the Staccato page on secondstreetdreams.com. That's Staccato. I'm Jude Gibson on the Second Street Dreams audio network on secondstreetdreams.com.